What's going on? I'll be Fitness Gaming, and you've seen the title of the video, you know why you're here. Domain Zoo versus Domain Zoo. So we're going to get into this matchup here that I had last night. I recorded it, so I'm going to go over the match and how I play against the mirror, depending on what version of Domain Zoo they're playing. In this version of Domain Zoo, I was playing 4 Expressive Iterations. I took out 2 Remands, a Dromoka's Command, and a Flooded Strand, only playing 3 Flooded Strand. So those are the 4 cards that I removed. The reason I removed the land, played 20 lands, is because of the card allows us to filter through our deck a lot better, so it made sense to trim that. So let's go ahead and get into the matchup here. We'll pull it up. Alright, so the hand here is a breeding pool. It's a 1-lander. So more often than not, 1-landers work out for you in this Zoo deck, in Domain Zoo, especially when you are on the draw. Now, you want to make sure you have a couple 1-drops. You want to make sure you have some type of plays. You don't want to just be keeping a 1-land hand with, a bunch of 2-drops. So yeah, this hand seems fine. We're going to keep that. We have the Expressive Iteration, and we have a breeding pool. So we just need a red source here. You also want to be a little bit conservative if your 1 land happens to be a plains or a forest. That's a lot worse than having a breeding pool. At least with a breeding pool, you're 1 fetch away from completing Domain. Opponent fetching here. Verdant Catacombs. This could be a lot of different decks here. So at this point, we really don't know what we're playing against. But we're playing Domain Zoo. So we have a basic strategy of just smash, 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 counter, smash. Temple Garden. Could be some type of Abzan deck. So they play a Wild Nacatl. So here, it's like, okay, so they're playing some variation of Domain Zoo, so it's going to be the mirror match. We don't draw our second land, but we still have 1 more draw before it becomes a problem. 1/1 Wild Nacatl on deck. So the reason we're testing out Expressive Iteration here, the card is really good. I think it could be good in Domain Zoo. That's why we're testing it out, seeing how it interacts. It is a card that you want to try to play later in the game, in the later turns, not so early, because it does give you an advantage, and you want to a card advantage, and you want to make sure you can take advantage of that, right? You don't want to be playing this on your second turn, looking at 3 cards, and only really being able to put 1 card in your hand. You want to put it in a situation where maybe you already have 3 or 4 mana in play. Maybe you haven't made a land drop that turn, so that you can either hit a land drop that you can play, or you can play a 1 mana spell. You're basically trying to get at least 2 cards out of it, right? You're not trying to just trade it for 1 card. You can if that's the only option you have, but that is how you want to play that card in this deck, at least from my experience of playing the card. So we're going to have Domain here. We have 2 Wild Nacatls. So playing against the mirror match here, the game plan for me is pretty straightforward. We're just going to continue attacking. Whoever has the biggest creatures wins. That's the simplest way I can explain this matchup. So I'm attacking there, hoping that he blocks. I don't mind trading with a Brawler. I keep looking at their hand size. They have 3 cards, 3 lands. So I know, okay, we're winning in card advantage. So chances are we're going to be able to take this game as long as we don't make any major misplays or nothing crazy happens. Because again, these matches come down to who has the bigger, badder creatures. And right now the boards are pretty equal, but our hand is stacked. I don't know what opponent has in hand, but our hand definitely has what it needs to win the game. So opponents are attacking in right. Opponent is attacking in right now. So like I mentioned earlier, I want to get rid of their creatures because I know that we have plenty of gas and they're only down to 3 cards. So since I know that and I understand that the matchup consists of whoever has the most creatures, the biggest creatures wins the matchup, to me it's just like, alright, let's just get rid of their hand, get rid of their board, and you know, eventually it becomes top deck wars, but we're going to have more cards, so we should be able to win this. In theory. Alright, so we're playing the Expressive here. We definitely need a land, so it's a good time to play it here because I know that if I can see a land out of these 3 cards, I can play a land and put a card in my hand, and therefore putting us ahead on card advantage even more than we already are. So now we get a creature and we're going to be able to put a land in play. So you can see there how Expressive Iteration is a good card in this deck. There's no debating whether it is or it's not. It is a good card, and it's a good card in this deck. The only question is it a better card in this deck than maybe Remand and Dromoka's commands? Those are really the flex spots, the cards that we play in those spots, right? So that's the question to answer. And that I'm not sure of. That's why we're playtesting it like this. I'm a big fan of playing a counter-cat style where you land a big threat and then you just protect it with counter spells and removal and you ride it to victory. You know, it plays like old school Legacy Canadian Threshold where you played your Dover Secrets, your Wild Mongooses, Nimble Mongooses, and Tarmogoyfs, and basically you just sat back with your Daze, Stifles, Wastelands. You kept them from playing anything and you rolled a threat to play. So it's similar concept. But this card definitely adds more to the deck as far as late game, and as you saw there, it gets us ahead in card advantage, which is sometimes something that Zoo can struggle with, especially against heavy removal decks. So opponent down to 1 card in hand, and our hand is just, it's stacked. If we can hit land drop after land drop from here, we're just going to be, we wouldn't mind that either. We wouldn't mind that at all. But we're going to stick to the same game plan here. Opponent is going to attack. We're just going to focus on getting rid of their creatures and saving our removal. Because it's going to be very hard for them to catch up once we're able to play multiple threats a turn and they have none. So here just figuring out what creature I want to play. So we're going to go with the Territorial Kavu. The Kavu right now does not trade, which is good for us with the Brawler. It can also filter through our deck. Wild Nacatl and Brawler seems to be the creatures that we have seen from opponent. So opponent not able to attack now. Good sign for us. That means the opponent is starting to slow down and they're running out of steam. And we still have plenty of gas in the tank. So now we're just going to start flooding the board here. This is where we start pulling away. And our hand is so stacked that we're actually able to get rid of a Brawler here. And then we get another Expressive Iteration, which is just going to put us even further ahead. Yep, so that's enough. I mean, opponent could have had 2 removal spells there. Even if they put 2 removal spells there, I wouldn't see their way for them. I mean, they get rid of those 2, but then we just have just so much gas in the tank. So we're going to get rid of Stubborn Denial. They didn't really see much things to counter there. Dromoka's command can help us in fighting their Kavus with ours and putting a counter on ours and winning that matchup, which can grow our Kavu plus get rid of theirs. It can get rid of their Leyline Bindings. So I just think it's a better card. Okay, so we're land heavy here. 2 creatures, Dromoka's Command. I believe I keep this because we are on the draw. If I was on the play, it's a little sketchy, you know, but on the draw, I think it's fine. One thing to keep in mind when you're playing against other Domain Zoo decks, especially in the matchup that we saw, we didn't see many cards, right? So there are so many little changes in Domain Zoo decks. I mean, most of them about 80-90% the same. But some people do play the Charlotte's Agent version, which is the Cascade version. Not sure if that's the version they're playing. Their fetch lands were a little different than ours, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Opponent can get a Temple Guard in here and activate Domain. So if they play a Kavu, okay, Spreading Seas. So this was a random card. I remember when I saw it, I was like, okay, Spreading Seas in a Zoo deck. Never seen that before. It kind of caught me by surprise, and I was like, okay. Kind of threw my plans off a little bit. But then I started thinking about it real quickly, and I'm like, I mean, that's not the worst, right? We still have an island. And we have plenty of mana to get Domain. And at the same time, I'm just thinking, okay, well, if opponent is spending cards on things like Spreading Seas, which, I don't know, they're just not that impactful when you have a hand like the one that we have right now, chances are they had to take out some stuff, right? Maybe they took out, I don't know, they obviously kept on Tribal Flames, but whatever they've taken out definitely diluted their deck. And if they're going with a more defensive version of the deck, I think that benefits us. I don't think they'll have enough cards to get rid of all our threats. Scion of Draco here. So here is a great example of why Dromoka's Command is really good in the mirror match. Because we're going to be able to play our Scion of Draco here. And we're going to be able to trade it by playing Dromoka's Command, giving it +1/+1 counter on ours, and then fighting theirs. Now they could have a Stubborn Denial. That's one thing to keep in mind. But seeing Spreading Seas, I have to imagine that you take out the Stubborn Denials or your counter spells. I can't imagine you trim on your interaction as things as Lightning Bolt, Tribal Flames, and your creatures, especially in this type of matchup. So here, notice I don't do the Dromoka's Command until they fetch. I do it in response to their fetch land, because if they did keep the Stubborn Denial in play, we do not want to get Stubborn Denial. So I was like, all right, well, let's just wait till they fetch, and then we'll play it that way. There's nothing they can do. Unless they have Force of Negation, which these decks don't play, but it is modern, and people tend to play whatever they want to play. So now we have a 5/5 flyer, and they don't have a board. They could play a land and double spell here, but I still think we're far ahead. We have removal for one of their spells. They could have Leyline Binding for ours. So the game is still very close here. Nobody, in my opinion right now, nobody really has an advantage. I mean, if you had to say Path to Exile, another card that I mean, I've tested in Domain Zoo before. I mean, it's alright. It's not a bad card, but I don't know. We got Leyline Binding now, and Lightning Bolts, and Prismatic Ending. I don't know. I just feel like there's just other pieces of removal that are just better in our deck than Path to Exile. Again, I'm not saying Path is a bad card. I just think, I mean, we got Fury. I don't know. There's just so many other better cards, I think, right now in Modern that you could be playing over Path. Alright, so Lightning Bolt. So here, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like opponent is really light on threats and has just had all the interaction, like removal and things like that. So I'm like, okay, well, we have an answer for one of their creatures, and they're going to have to keep drawing into taking care of ours. It seems like that's the position that they're in right now. I'm not sure how they sideboarded, but hopefully, I would imagine they would have not removed any of their threats. But, you know, you never know. Everybody has different game plans and domain decks. It's like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face by a brawler. Well, he didn't say that, but... Alright. So opponent 3 cards. We have 3 cards. We also have a companion. Okay, Lightning Bolt. 2 cards in hand. And we can get rid of one of their creatures. That's one thing that I keep in mind here. We're leaving the plains untapped. Alright, so they play a Kavu. So we're going to take this. So like I mentioned earlier, the way you want to play this matchup that I have found that is the best way is whoever has the biggest, baddest creatures in play win. So if you can have some type of a card advantage and have creatures in play like we're doing right now, I mean, it is very hard for you to lose because both of you of the domain decks win by damage, right? By combat. So I believe I might have done a misplay. Last turn I should have just fetched. I probably didn't want to take damage, which is possible. But I could have taken a couple points of damage there and just put the companion in my hand. But I believe when I was playing, I was more conservative about protecting my life total because they do play burn spells, right? And back-to-back Leyline Bindings can become a problem. But here, you know, we're in a great spot. We have 2 creatures. They have 1. We have a Kavu, plus we're going to have a companion. So we're going to be far ahead of our opponent here. So notice there, I attack. I knew he was either going to block one or the other, most likely the Wild Nacatl. But I feel that getting the points of damage in are a lot more important because we're so far ahead in card advantage that right now we just want to close the game as quick as possible because we don't want them to draw into something. Like I mentioned, they could draw into back-to-back Leyline Bindings, and then next thing you know, they have a Kavu in play, and we have nothing, and we're tapping out for a Jegantha, and then they draw another, you know, and things could turn around for us really bad. I mean, they could draw Dromoka's command, put a counter on their Kavu, kill our Jegantha. So, I mean, these games can be very swingy even when it seems like you're ahead and you're on your road to victory. So opponent doesn't attack here. To me, that tells me that they don't really have anything in hand. So they have Fire and Ice, tapping one of our cards. And when I say they don't have anything in hand, meaning like a creature, you know, or Tribal Flames. So Fire and Ice is fine. It's more of a... They're kind of like treading water right now, in my opinion. It does slow us down here, but like I mentioned before, like right here I'm thinking like, well, opponent's thinking, but I'm also thinking like, we're going to attack here. If he doesn't block, we kill him or her. If he does block, it's okay with us. We'll take that trade because we'll have a Jegantha and a Kavu in play. And a Tribal Flames. So we can technically... play our Jegantha and then get rid of whatever threat they play. Opponent is going to have 2 cards next turn, so they could play double threat. which, you know, it's still fine for us. We're still in a good position because, like I mentioned, we can Tribal Flames. Opponent is playing Fire and Ice, which I'm not sure if that's the best card in this deck. Domain Zoo. I know that Rhinos plays it, but Rhinos plays it because they want to tap you out on your second turn. Turn 2, that way they can play the third land and then go off. Not sure, I mean, other than tapping land and tapping a creature and drawing. I'm not really sure how good this card is in the deck. At the same time, I've never play tested it, but I will definitely try it out. Because Fire and Ice is a really good card. The thing about really good cards is that they're not always, they're at their best in certain decks, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. So Expressive Iteration's been pretty good so far, as you can tell, in this match. So we're just going to end the game here. Alright, well there you have it, my friends. Domain Zoo versus Domain Zoo. Went over my strategy, how I normally play against that deck, how I sideboard against that deck. We were able to see a little bit of Expressive Iteration, how well that card works in the deck. As far as it being the optimal card, I don't know, but it is a good card. Okay, is it better than Remand, Dromoka's Command? I'm not sure. Those are all great cards. Maybe it's based on the person's play style. I'm going to continue playing some more games with Expressive Iteration to kind of see how well the card does. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe, share, like my video. And again, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and take care.